Blessed One, Shakyamuni Buddha, precious treasury of compassion, bestower of supreme inner peace, you who love all beings without exception, are the source of happiness and goodness, and you guide us to the liberating path. Your body is a wish-fulfilling jewel. Your speech is supreme purifying nectar, and your mind is refuge for all living beings. With folded palms I turn to you, supreme, unchanging friend. I request from the depths of my heart, please give me the light of your wisdom to dispel the darkness of my mind, and to heal my mental continuum. Please nourish me with your goodness, that I in turn may nourish all beings with an unceasing banquet of delight. Through your compassionate intention, your blessings and virtuous deeds, and my strong wish to rely upon you, may all suffering quickly cease, and all happiness and joy be fulfilled, and may holy Dhamma flourish forevermore. I and all sentient beings, until we achieve enlightenment, go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I and all sentient beings, until we achieve enlightenment, go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I and all sentient beings, until we achieve enlightenment, go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Through the virtues I collect by giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha for the benefit of all. Through the virtues I collect by giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha for the benefit of all. Through the virtues I collect by giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha for the benefit of all. May everyone be happy. May everyone be free from misery. May no one ever be separated from their happiness. May everyone have equanimity, free from hatred and attachment. In the space before me is the living Buddha Shakyamuni, surrounded by all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, like the full moon surrounded by stars. With my body, speech, and mind, humbly I prostrate, and make offerings both set out and imagined. I confess my wrong deeds from all time, and rejoice in the virtues of all. Please stay until samsara ceases, and turn the wheel of Dharma for us. I dedicate all virtues to great enlightenment. The ground sprinkled with perfume and spread with flowers, the great mountain for land, sun and moon, seen as a Buddha land and offered thus. May all beings enjoy such pure lands. I offer without any sense of loss the objects that give rise to my attachment, hatred, and confusion, my friends, enemies, and strangers, our bodies and enjoyments. Please accept these and bless me to be released directly from the three poisons. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami. The path begins with strong reliance on my kind teacher, source of all good. Oh, bless me with this understanding to follow him with great devotion. This human life with all its freedoms extremely rare, with so much meaning. Oh, bless me with this understanding all day and night to seize its essence. My body like a water bubble decays and dies so very quickly. After death come results of karma, just like the shadow of a body. With this firm knowledge and remembrance, bless me to be extremely cautious, always avoiding harmful actions and gathering abundant virtue. Samsara's pleasures are deceptive, give no contentment, only torment. So please bless me to strive sincerely to gain the bliss of perfect freedom. Oh, bless me so that from this pure thought come mindfulness and greatest caution, to keep as my essential practice the doctrine's root, the Pratimoksha. Just like myself, all my kind mothers are drowning in samsara's ocean. Oh, so that I may soon release them, bless me to train in bodhicitta. But I cannot become a Buddha by this alone, without three ethics. So bless me with the strength to practice the Bodhisattva's ordination, by pacifying my distractions and analyzing perfect meanings. Bless me to quickly gain the union of special insight and quiescence. When I become a pure container through common paths, bless me to enter the essence practice of good fortune, the supreme vehicle Vajrayana. The two attainments both depend on my sacred vows and my commitments. Bless me to understand this clearly and keep them at the cost of my life. By constant practice in 4 sessions, the way explained by holy teachers. Oh, bless me to gain both the stages which are the essence of the Tantras. May those who guide me on the good path and my companions all have long lives. Bless me to pacify completely all obstacles, outer and inner. May I always find perfect teachers and take delight in holy Dharma. Accomplish all grounds and pass swiftly and gain the state of Vajradhara. From the hearts of all the holy beings, streams of light and nectar flow down, granting blessings and purifying.
Now please imagine in front of you appears Guru Buddha Shakyamuni. Surrounding him are all the enlightened beings, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions. Out of their great compassion, their loving kindness comes streams of light and nectar pouring from their hearts. These gather on our crown, enters our body and mind. All our negativities, our physical pain, our mental unhappiness, all our delusions are purified. Our body becomes very light, very clean and pure. We hold this feeling of having a light body, pure and happy mind. Believing our mind is filled with positive feeling. In this way, we receive the profound blessings of the holy beings. We can now begin today's class. Hello and welcome everyone to this special workshop on the practice of taking and giving. Now, we have a couple of teachings and a couple of meditation sessions. We can spend some time learning about this profound practice or meditation on taking and giving. I'm going to refer mainly to the teachings on the new 8 Steps of Happiness. So you can find this book either online, you can download on the ebook, and you can learn about these teachings. So there's a chapter called Taking and Giving, in which it refers to the root text of this book. 8 verses, 8 steps of happiness, new 8 steps of happiness. So, in one of the verses it says, in short, may I directly and indirectly offer help and happiness to all my mothers, and secretly take upon myself all their harm and suffering. So this verse refers to the practice of taking and giving. The first line, it says, in short, may I directly or indirectly. Yeah? This means it is teaching us how we can practice taking on others' suffering and giving others happiness. Directly means through the power of our concentration. Indirectly means through the power of imagination. So we're going to practice mainly through the power of imagination, but with that we can increase our concentration such that in future, through the power of our concentration, we can directly take other suffering upon ourselves. We can directly give happiness to others, like the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So, what I like to do in these 2 sessions, the first session, I like to talk about the very essential motivation that we need to engage in this meditation. This is a mind of compassion. I like to draw on some of the teachings from Venerable Geshe Kelsang when he first wrote this book and then gave teachings on this book. Also, we need to understand how ourselves and others are harmed by self-grasping and self-cherishing in order to generate this mind of compassion. On this basis, we then go on to practice the meditation on first taking on others' suffering. That's the first class. And then we are going to engage, we have opportunity to engage in the meditation on taking. Then later, in the next session of teaching, we'll learn about love, or giving out of love, in particular, wishing love. And then I'll explain the meditation on giving. And then we have opportunity to meditate on both of these together, mounting, taking and giving upon the breath. I hope it sounds okay for you. So this, I look forward to very much, because this meditation practice is very profound and very beneficial. I'd like to begin just by reading to you the benefits of this meditation practice. So Geshe says, there are 4 main benefits of the meditation on taking and giving. They are powerful methods to 1. Purify the potentialities of non-virtuous actions that cause us to experience serious diseases such as cancer. So first benefit is that it can purify our negativities, purify our karma or non-virtuous actions. In particular, it can purify even serious diseases such as cancer. So if you have cancer, or you know someone who have cancer, we can all benefit from this practice. If cancer is already here, then this practice can purify the continuation of the cancer. If you're healthy and you practice taking and giving, then it'll purify the potentials or the karma you might have created to have cancer maybe sometime later in this life. So it can prevent serious diseases such as cancer. Secondly, the second benefit, it can to accumulate a great collection of merit. And third, to ripen our potentiality to be able to benefit all living beings. And fourth, to purify our mind. So the second benefit is to accumulate a vast amount of merit, means good karma, good luck. So we can find it easy to fulfill our own and others' wishes, or to help others, This practice, the third benefit, is that we'll ripen our Buddha potential, which is our actual potential, our actual hidden or ability within our mind, that we'll be able to benefit all living beings. So this meditation is, if you like, is like a quick path to ripen our Buddha potential. And finally, to purify our mind. So when our mind is pure, our world, the world that we experience, will be pure. So I like to explain this in the context of developing compassion, because compassion is the main motivation in engaging in this practice. We need to understand what it is, its function, and so on. One of the main functions of compassion is to make our mind very pure. So, what is compassion? Compassion is a mind that out of cherishing others, we only feel compassion when we like or love someone. If we dislike someone, even when we see that person suffers, we don't feel compassion. So the first thing we need to do is to generate some love, or think about those people we care and love. So upon this basis, when we see them experiencing suffering, we find their suffering unbearable. This feeling, when we feel this unbearability, if you like, this is a feeling of compassion. This feeling leads to a sincere wish to stop, or to help to stop others' suffering. This is compassion. In the teaching Geshe gave, when he first published this book, he gave in a festival, he gave some essential teachings relating to this book. And this was, I think, year 2000, so a long time ago. So he explained what will happen if we develop great compassion. The more compassion increases, our mind is more and more pure. So I said one of the benefits of this practice is to purify our mind. Primarily is because of the function of compassion. The more our compassion increases, the more our mind becomes pure. When our mind is completely pure, we perceive a pure world, pure body and mind. So in this way, in reality, we become a pure being with pure, everlasting happiness in a pure land. There is no basis for any samsaric problems. All human problems disappear. So I'd like to just think about these few words. So Geshe is trying to help us to imagine, to understand what will happen to us when we develop compassion for others. So sometimes when we think about compassion, is like we're doing something extra. We are getting out of our way to help other people, and other people are benefiting. But in reality, when we witness others suffering, if we train in compassion, we ourselves experience immense benefits, and I would even say kindness, Sometimes it is said that the living beings we see suffering, like right now you see so much suffering in the world, And sometimes we think poor beings in samsara, I'm feeling compassion for these poor living beings in samsara. Sometimes it is said that Buddhas even manifest as suffering beings in order to help us generate great compassion to attain enlightenment. So in reality, we don't know who these suffering beings are. The fact is, when we generate compassion, our mind becomes purer and purer, more and more pure. So because of compassion, developing compassion towards others' suffering, we become a pure being. When we become a pure being, we experience a pure, everlasting happiness, and we can live in a pure world, a pure land. So the fact that we can live in a pure land where all our samsaric suffering, human suffering, ceased, is because we can generate compassion. We can generate compassion is because there are other suffering living beings. So how kind they are, So when we generate compassion, it's not like, I'm here to help you, poor being down there. We generate compassion with a mind of humility, realizing how precious, special this opportunity is, just because we witness a suffering living being. So Geshe goes on to say, how does compassion cause us to live in a pure world, cause all our human problems to disappear? He said, we may not understand clearly how this can happen. If we understand the relationship between our mind and its object, then we can understand. Normally, we think objects such as our world are outside, our mind is inside. We think they are unrelated, no connection. This is wrong, not correct. So how is it that when we generate compassion, we'll be able to live in a pure land? To understand this, we need to understand the relationship between our mind and the objects, or the things that we experience with our mind. So normally we feel our mind is here and the world is out there. We feel this big distance, This is our normal attitude, normal point of view. So Geshe explained this is wrong. It's mainly because of our ignorance we have this kind of experience. So first, I need to explain how to meditate on great compassion. Having developed cherishing love for all beings, with this feeling, we think about how all beings suffer. Although some beings seem higher or lower each without exception experiences suffering life after life, no matter how high, even in the God realms. Worries, fears, dangers, depression. Everyone experiences anger, attachment, jealousy, ignorance. Yeah, so again, if you look around right now, you can see so many people suffering from sickness, suffering from conflict, anger, suffering from attachment, jealousy. So you just have to look and you see how this is the truth. This is simply reality. We're not trying to paint a bad picture of the world. We're simply looking at reality. Now Geshe then goes on to explain how in particular we suffer from how ignorance brings suffering. This is not obvious, Through ignorance, they don't know how to be happy, how to be free from suffering. They always engage in actions that cause suffering, especially ignorance, grasping at I. They are always uncomfortable, unpeaceful. Anger is like internal fire. When it arises, it burns inner peace. It arises because self-grasping is so strong. It pervades all our environment. When we see beautiful form, we see only truly existent form, which exists from its own side. We think it is true because our sense awareness perceives it. But our sense awareness are deceptive. The way we see things is completely wrong. If we are satisfied with mere name, sense awareness can function. But normally we see beyond mere name. This is wrong. So through ignorance means not knowing. There are many types of not knowing. Here in particular, he's referring to not knowing how things exist. This experience we have, we feel mind is here inside, the world and other things are out there, separate, unrelated. This is ignorance. Due to this, living beings don't know how to make themselves happy. And they are constantly engaging in actions that is destroying each other's happiness, causing more suffering. Now please look at or think about what is happening right now. And you can see, I think we can see there's so much anger in the world right now. So many people suffering from anger. What does this anger do? It destroys inner peace. Geshe says it is like an inner fire, internal fire. It hurts. And when it manifests as actions, as you can see, destructive actions, then many people, happiness destroyed, environment destroyed, harmony destroyed, inner peace destroyed. Without inner peace, there is no real happiness, So all this is coming from grasping at things that we normally see, believing that they are real, they are out there. This applies also to pleasant things, So this situation, this problem of self-grasping is everywhere. Geshe says pervading our whole environment. So self-grasping problems are unbelievable, but you don't know how bad it is. We should understand all beings experience this suffering life after life. Now we experience an impure world, contaminated enjoyments, true suffering. If we check carefully, we understand the relationship between self-grasping and our external world. It is just an appearance to our mind, the same nature as our mind of self-grasping. So why is the world like it is? Why do we experience such an impure, suffering world? It is because we have mind of self-grasping, and this world is the mere appearance of this self-grasping mind. So Geshe goes on to explain how we generate compassion. So we contemplate every living being has to experience birth, sickness, aging, death in a continual cycle. If it were just one life, not so bad, but it is life after life, countless lives. If we think this, we develop the sincere wish to release all living beings from suffering by attaining permanent liberation from suffering. Just temporary release is not enough. We need permanent liberation from suffering. When this feeling of compassion develops, we hold and meditate single-pointedly as long as possible. Then out of meditation, we try to carry this feeling without forgetting. So this way of generating compassion, not just looking at others suffering and thinking, poor person. Or even sometimes when we look at our friends and we see them suffer, and we have this wish for them to be free from suffering. But often it's because we want them to get better so we can enjoy. We can go out, have fun, or we have less trouble like this. So here we are trying to understand where suffering is coming from. Why are living beings suffering? Because of self-grasping. Because of, later you see, also from self-grasping comes self-cherishing, So we ourselves suffer like this, and we look at others suffering, they are exactly the same. So in order to have this sincere wish for others to be free from suffering, and then later to have an intention to take away their suffering out of compassion with our meditation, with our concentration and imagination, we need to have some intention to stop our own self-cherishing. Because if we carry our self-cherishing mind in our heart, this mind does not want to free others from suffering very much. It's not, or our wish of compassion is not very pure. So, and also it doesn't really want to take suffering upon ourselves, So when we generate compassion, we try to generate compassion without self-cherishing. What is self-cherishing? Self-cherishing is a mind upon the basis of self-grasping, believing the self that we normally see to be true, to be real. It regards that self to be most important. It is a mind that thinks, my happiness is most important, my suffering most important. So, first of all, we need to reduce, if we can, abandon this self-cherishing attitude. In the meditation we're going to do, this meditation itself helps us to destroy our self-cherishing. But it can only do so if you want to destroy your self-cherishing. You need to develop your own wish. Nobody can force you. You must stop your selfishness. You must abandon your self-cherishing. Nobody can tell you do this. You need to have intention yourself, So we can contemplate what Geshe says about our self-cherishing. He describes this self-cherishing attitude, said, since beginningless time, countless lives, we cherished only ourself. We have achieved nothing from this. Our self-cherishing deceives us into working for our own purpose. Then we experience suffering from our actions or karma. Yeah? So this self-cherishing mind we have had since beginningless time. We followed it, and we have gained nothing from following this master of self-cherishing. Geshe says this self-cherishing mind deceives us because it is based on self-grasping ignorance. The object that we cherish, the self that we normally see, doesn't even exist. So we are cherishing something that doesn't even exist. Yeah. So in Buddhist teachings on emptiness, if you go search for yourself with wisdom, you find you fail to find it. You can't find it. You realize it doesn't exist at all. Self-cherishing, however, believes it exists and cherishes this non-existent. So that's how it deceives us. And because on this basis, it causes us to work so hard for this self that we normally see that doesn't even exist. In trying to get the best for this self, for me, we engage in many actions that will bring suffering for ourselves, for others. So in this way, self-cherishing has deceived us. We suffer because we accumulated many non-virtuous actions motivated by self-cherishing. The suffering that you see right now is because we have created the cause for it, the karma for it. Why? Because we were motivated by self-cherishing. We accumulated things, then we are empty when we die. Countless lives wasted. We achieve nothing from this. So self-cherishing, if you look at this life, it causes us to gain many things, reputation, wealth, many material things. And we acted out of, caring for our friends and family. Often we acted in way that engage in negative actions, So out of all this, we live our whole life, accumulated many things. By the time we die, we are empty. We have nothing. Countless lives are wasted like this. Geshe says, contemplating the disadvantages of self-cherishing, like this, if our contemplation is clear and strong, this automatically gives rise to a determination to give up self-cherishing. Yeah? So we'll do this in a little while. We'll contemplate the disadvantages of self-cherishing. And then we also contemplate how self-cherishing, self-grasping, is harming all living beings, causing them to live in an impure world, experiencing suffering such as birth, aging, sickness, death. In this way, we generate a mind of compassion. Yeah. So with this motivation of compassion, we then go on to practice, first of all, the meditation on taking. Now, how to engage in the meditation on taking? I'd like to refer to New 8 Steps to Happiness. We visualize ourselves surrounded by the assembly of all mother living beings, without exception. For auspiciousness, and to help us relate to them more easily, we can visualize them all in human aspect. But we should remember that each of them is experiencing the suffering of their own particular realm. It is not necessary to picture them clearly. A rough mental image will suffice. So, the object of our meditation on taking is actually all living beings, the object of our compassion. Yeah. So we first visualize them surrounding us. So of course, the easiest way is you can imagine like your friends and family surrounding you, people whom you know very well, they're sitting near you. And then if you want, you can imagine all other human beings surrounding you. And if you like, you can imagine all living beings of the 6 realms, the animal realms, the hungry spirit, the hell beings, the beings in the God realms. To make it easy, and for auspiciousness, you can imagine them all appearing in human aspects. Okay? So these are the objects of your compassion. Yeah? So next we need to generate compassion. We then develop compassion for all these living beings by thinking about their suffering. Human beings experience the sufferings of birth, sickness, aging and death, of poverty, hunger and thirst, of meeting adverse conditions and not fulfilling their wishes, and of being separated from their loved ones, as well as countless other sorrows. So you can, at this time, when you're thinking about others' suffering, if you know someone who's sick in particular, or someone who's suffering a lot mentally, unhappiness, depression, you can think about them. You can think about their suffering and generate compassion. You can think about those people you see who's experiencing conflict, who's experiencing the sickness, pandemic, and you can think about them and generate compassion. Yeah. So you begin with the compassion that you can easily generate, and then you can begin to extend this feeling of compassion to the beings of other realms. Animals experience the same sufferings, but only far worse. In addition, they suffer from great ignorance, exploitation by humans, and living in constant fear of being killed by other animals. Hungry spirits experience the suffering of intense hunger and thirst, and hell beings experience unimaginable sufferings of heat and cold. Demigods experience the sufferings of jealousy and conflict for long periods of time. Even the gods, who spend most of their lives enjoying the pleasures of samsara, are not free from suffering. Their enjoyment, environment, and bodies are contaminated and in the nature of suffering. And they experience great anguish at the time of death. So thinking like this, the point is, we generate compassion towards every single living being. So our compassion is not biased, and this kind of compassion is called great compassion. This kind of compassion makes our practice of taking very, very powerful. Then what do we do? Focusing on all living beings of the 6 realms and contemplating their suffering, we think from the depths of our heart, in their countless future lives, these living beings will continually experience without choice the suffering of humans, animals, hungry spirits, hell beings, demigods and gods. How wonderful it would be if all these living beings were permanently free from the suffering and fears in this life and in countless future lives. May they achieve this. I myself will work for them to achieve this. I must do this. Yeah? So you are generating this powerful mind of compassion. Yeah? And I like to guide you this meditation in a little while, but I try to encourage you. Try to forget about yourself. Forget about yourself when you generate compassion. Your own problems, your own suffering. Simply by thinking, I'm only one. Others are countless. Compared to their suffering and problems, this one person suffering nothing. So allow yourself, your suffering, your worries to disappear in the ocean of suffering of all living beings. So in this way, we can generate this pure mind of compassion without worrying about ourselves, without even thinking about ourselves, if you like. It's like generating compassion without self-cherishing. So this compassion becomes very powerful, and it motivates us to want to do something, to want to take away the suffering of others. And we think, I must do this. Thinking in this way, we imagine that the sufferings of all living beings gather together in the aspect of black smoke. This dissolves into our ignorance of self-grasping and self-cherishing at our heart. We strongly believe that all living beings are permanently free from suffering, and our ignorance of self-grasping and self-cherishing is completely destroyed. We meditate on this belief single-pointedly for as long as possible. So this is the meditation. So the main thing, the most important thing, is our mind of compassion, is our motivation. Yeah? Only when we have this compassion motivation, we will want to take away others' suffering. Otherwise, we won't do it. We won't want to. And we'll only do what we want, you know? With this motivation, we use our mental action or mental imagination. Yeah? Imagining, visualizing, this is mental action. Okay? So we imagine the suffering of all living beings take on the aspect of black smoke. And this smoke is coming towards us, towards our heart in particular. What's at our heart? We imagine at our heart it is the root of all our suffering and problem, our self-grasping and self-cherishing mind. Now, again, previously we need to have developed the intention or the wish to abandon our self-grasping or self-cherishing, realizing it is the source of all our suffering, realizing how it's deceptive, how it's caused ourselves and others to suffer. So we don't want it. So now this black smoke is coming towards our heart and is getting rid of our self-grasping, our self-cherishing, the root of all our problems. Of course, we welcome it. So with this understanding, when other suffering are coming towards us in the form of black smoke, we have a mind of joy. And this mind of great joy is strength. It makes our mind strong, you know. So with this strength of mind, when we ourselves in future were to experience suffering, the suffering doesn't disturb our peace, doesn't make us unhappy. When our mind is happy and peaceful, in the midst of difficulties, even in the midst of serious sickness, sickness cannot make us suffer. So we may be sick. We may experience adversity because of this strength of mind that maintains our peace and happiness. We don't suffer. Yeah? So you can see how by training in this meditation of taking, it strengthens our mind and it purifies our suffering. Because suffering is a state of mind. It's a weak mind. When we experience difficulties, it suffers. Our inner peace is destroyed. A strong mind is a happy mind. When difficulty comes, inner peace remains. We don't suffer. Okay? So this is how this meditation helps us to purify our suffering. So then, when we visualize like this, we believe our self-cherishing and self-grasping is destroyed. Very good. And on the other hand, the suffering has left all living beings. And we believe this. We believe this. This belief is the object of our meditation. Yeah? It is just a belief. It's just thinking and believing. All living beings are free from their suffering. Our own self-grasping, self-cherishing completely destroyed. Yeah? This mind of belief is the object of our meditation. So some of you may have some doubts, thinking, is this right? But in reality, if I rise from meditation, the world is still fighting. People are still getting sick. There's suffering everywhere. So is this belief correct? Geshe goes on to explain. We may think that our belief that living beings have attained permanent liberation from suffering through our meditation is incorrect, because living beings have not actually attained this. Although it is true that living beings have not actually attained permanent liberation, our belief is still correct, because it arises from our compassion and wisdom. Meditating on this belief will cause our potentiality of being able to liberate all living beings permanently from suffering to ripen quickly, so that we will attain enlightenment quickly. Therefore, we should never abandon such a beneficial belief, which is the nature of wisdom. Now, Geshe, when he explained this meditation, he said, if you're new, you're just beginning, you don't need to worry too much how taking and giving works. You just need to have an open mind and belief. Now, this belief, he explains, comes from, where does it come from? Why are we suddenly believing this? Not for our own benefit. We're believing this out of compassion. Yeah? We're believing this out of wisdom, understanding the relationship between our mind and our world. We're not grasping at a suffering world outside. We are understanding with wisdom that if our mind becomes pure, our world becomes pure. Yeah. So earlier I explained how compassion makes our mind pure. When we see other living beings suffering, yeah, in this impure world, and then we develop a mind of compassion, wishing them to be free. As soon as you have this wish to protect others, to free others from suffering, your mind becomes pure. And you see pure living beings. And you see pure worlds of living beings without suffering. So this belief that all living beings are free from suffering believe that we have no self-cherishing, so no self-grasping, is simply the result of our compassion. So this meditation is like, of course, even though we think this, we still have some self-cherishing, we still, other living beings are still suffering and so forth, but we are imagining it. It's like we're bringing the result of our compassion into the path, into our training, into this meditation. Yeah? So this imagination is correct. Why? Because we are believing in something that will happen in the future. Yeah? Even though right now, while we're believing all living beings are not, they are free from suffering, but yet they're not yet completely free, this belief is correct, because if we keep practicing like this, all living beings will be free in the future. So we're believing in something that has not yet happened, but it will happen. Therefore, it is a correct belief. It is a beneficial belief because it will lead to that result. And it is correct because its motivation, its basis is compassion and wisdom. Okay? So, what we'll do in the next session, which is a meditation section, I'll spend time mainly to cultivate compassion and the wish to abandon self-cherishing. And then on this basis, we can do like a simple meditation on taking. Yeah? So we can now finish here. We can dedicate, take a little break, and we can come back for the meditation session. Okay, thank you.
Through the virtues I have collected, by practicing the stages of the path, may all living beings find the opportunity to practice in the same way. May everyone experience the happiness of humans and gods, and quickly attain enlightenment, so that samsara is finally extinguished. So that the tradition of Tsongkhapa, the King of the Dharma, may flourish. May all obstacles be pacified, and may all favorable conditions abound. Through the two collections of myself and others, gathered throughout the three times, may the doctrine of conqueror Losandra flourish forever.